So the last season left us with Tyler and Laurel on their adventure, and then we have this new adventure where the crew is meeting with the Enterprise, and then we also have Georgiou and her adventure. Are we going to see separate stories for a long time and then it collides, or is it just going to continue being a separate story?
Actually, the best answer is that they're going to interweave. I think, as Anthony was saying, there's a dimensionality now that our characters all have, and each character has their own story, and some of those stories function on Discovery, and some of those stories function outside Discovery. And so, you know, it'll be very interesting, for example, to see what happens with Tyler and Laurel, because Tyler left the crew at the end of the season, and the question becomes, how does he come back, but how's he going to live between these two worlds? So you'll see a lot of that for all the characters.
Brandon Choi, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. My question is, is in regards to the mirror universe that we had in season 1, is there going to be an opportunity for us to see other universes outside of the mirror universe this season?
There could be, but I think we felt that the mirror universe served an incredibly specific character purpose last year, in that the first half of the season was about blowing up Burnham's life, so that in a way she had the opportunity through the mirror universe to fix problems, emotional problems and literal problems. And any choice that we make about universes isn't just about, hey, let's do that because it's cool. It's because there's a great character journey to be had there. So I think this season is not so much about going to alternate universes as much as it's about maintaining and growing the direction of the characters. But certainly the idea of going to other universes is open.
Hi. Star Trek has kind of always advanced this idea of inclusion. Is there anything that you feel is too taboo, or anything that you don't want to include, and anything that you're kind of dying to tackle?
You asked me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that there's nothing that's too taboo as long as it feels like it's still Star Trek. Someone asked me this the other day, and one answer would be, I'm very curious about what differently abled means in the future when modern medicine has advanced to a place where so many of the things that are problems now are gone. I think that's a really interesting thing to explore, because it means sort of projecting 300-400 years into the future and imagining what that will mean for people. But I don't think there's really anything that we can't tackle as long as it feels like it's part of Star Trek. I know there were certainly certain messages we don't want to promote, and I think we all work pretty hard to not do that. But no, I wouldn't say there's anything that's too taboo.
Anthony and Wilson, could you talk about your storyline and what's going to happen in the future?
What was the question?
Your storyline and what's going to happen, any little hints, anything? Great chemistry.
Well, we can tell you that there is a relationship to begin with, right? So I'm here. My neck feels fine. I could actually use a massage, but you know, I'm excited. What I'm really excited about is the fact that the fans are going to have the experience that they're going to have in the episodes that we've already shot. I'm really excited about them having that experience, and you know, I think we're going to learn a lot more individually about these two men and together. I think we're going to deepen this relationship and these characters, and I'm hungry and ready for the opportunity.
And I won't go into the details of the whys and the hows, but it really is inspired by real science that Paul Stamets, the real Paul Stamets, who's a mycologist, has to say about the nature of mycelia and how it interacts with matter in the universe, and his theories about that. So that's cool that it's, you know, we take it to a sort of fantastical, extrapolate it into these areas, but it's really grounded in something that's a human being who's doing incredible, innovative work right now on our planet about how can we make the world better through mycelia, that we get to do a little piece of that too.
Roger Chang from CNET. Hi, over here. So last season, obviously there were a couple of twists in the season that folks kind of figured out ahead of time, given the hyper-awareness, and it's not obviously a problem that's unique to your show. But how have you adjusted to that hyper-awareness of fans who kind of analyze everything and look for twists? You even suggested in the panel that things aren't going to turn out the way we expect. Those answers aren't going to be what we expect. How does that change for season 2?
Well, I think we live in a world now where, the entire game of the internet is to try and second guess every choice that everybody makes on any show. And that's just a given. So I think for us last year, while we started seeing people guessing certain things online, they didn't guess how we were going to do it. And so when the reveals came, there was still an element of surprise. And I think that, for us, is the part that's really exciting, is that I don't think it's terrible if people speculate and guess and maybe even get close to the truth, because they're still not going to get the exact truth, and they're still going to be a surprise about how we reveal it to them.
And so many of us behind the scenes are approaching everything as fans of this kind of storytelling where you're turning over cards. And I think for us, it's such a joy to just come up with a story we're all excited about. And we don't worry about, are they going to guess it ahead of time? Because even if they do, we're sort of hoping, like we're in on it and we're still loving it. So we're hoping that fans are going to feel the same way.
Also, it's kind of a really great problem to have, right? Like to have a fandom that cares so much and so deeply about the details of what you're doing that they take the time to share their thoughts and their feelings about it. And isn't that what we all want? That somebody be so engaged and so immersed in our world that they appreciate it to that level. That's what it's all about.
Jenny DeFeo. Hi. Since you're going into your second season, this is obviously a dream come true for a lot of you. So if you could go back in time and tell your 12-year-old self about this experience, what would you say to them?
That's a great question.
I'll go first so that I don't turn into a complete blubbering fool by the time it gets
That's
to
okay.
me. But, I was an ambitious kid. I had big dreams for myself, but I never thought in reality that they'd come true. And to be an openly gay man of color in this relationship on this specific show and franchise, I would say to that 12-year-old kid, don't listen to those dark voices in your head. Everything and anything is possible if you work hard enough. And I thank him for the journey.
Hi, John Kirk from track4.com. Sorry, did I just interrupt somebody? It's okay. Sorry. Well, it's a question for Anthony, but I'm sure other people can chime in on this one too. But I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to see your characters' stories extrapolated into comic book format, like with the ones that are coming out in IDW.
I didn't understand the last part of your question.
What it's like to see your character stories extrapolated in comic book format.
Oh, that was... So, I grew up reading comic books like a fiend. I would, when I was on tour as a little acting kid, every city I would find the local comic book shop and cart my comic books around the country. So, when it was revealed that I was going to be in a comic book, it blew my mind. I mean, every aspect of this is like, if you told me that 12-year-old, I'd be like, what are you talking about? No, I like these things. I'm not ever going to be a part of it. And yet, so it's incredible.
Yeah.
And truly joyful.
Hi, my name is Beth Elderkin, IO9. This is for Heather, Alex, and Anson as well. So we've seen the first glimpse of Captain Pike and, of course, the Enterprise. So what's been the biggest challenge with balancing the tone that you've established in the first season and the arrival of the classic Trek era?
Well, there's a lot of fun this season. I think obviously last season was about war, and it's tough to really stop down and have a whole lot of humor when the stakes are so high and life and death is really what they're dealing with every day. And what I love about Pike, and I think this kind of comes from what I took from Jeffrey Hunter's performance, and to some degree the Pike that we did in the movies, is that he's a man who's very kind, who has tremendous authority, and yet can still apologize when he's wrong. And so in many ways, he's the opposite of Lorca that way. And tonally now, we've gotten to a place where the crew has more, even though the stakes are still very high, there's more downtime in moments, which allows for more humor, which allows for a slower onion layer pulling open of character and the details of their relationships that just we would never have been able to give time to. But I feel like tonally it's probably a more buoyant season, even though there are some episodes that are very, very serious and intense. I think you'll see in the first episode that there's more balance between some of the humor that you'd see on TOS and the high stakes of the more modern versions of Trek. Anson?
From an acting point of view, you know, one of the hardest things creatively about acting in television is the establishment of a character. You got to be very careful about the footprints you lay because they're there for a very long time. And so you're constantly when you're starting a character, you're doing this balancing act of laying down choices and yet exploring the character as you and the writers learn more, because figuring out as well. So my knowledge is based really only, and what I know I try to be very clear about, and Pike was the original, Roddenberry's original face of Starfleet. So I only knew that there's a tremendous optimism to this person, and a good heart, someone who probably had good mentors, and we just, and you know, I've made my stumbles here and there, and this lady has propped me up here and there, and you learn as you go. I'm really enjoying playing a character I like as a person.
Down here to your left, I think you're left. I wanted to ask, you talked a little bit in the panel for the producers about the idea of syncing up with the canon, and I was hoping you could go in a little more detail about what that means, and also, have you ever been tempted to just say, screw it, we're doing our own thing?
We've never been tempted to say, screw it, we're doing our own thing. However, we are constantly challenging ourselves in the writer's room with how can we push really, really hard against the edges of what canon is without breaking it. And that means things like coming up with a spore drive, which obviously never existed before Discovery, and why did Spock never mention his sister? These are huge, huge questions. And we will be syncing up with canon, and we will be answering those questions. And as I said at the panel, I think the key for us is to do it in a way that both feels inevitable and totally surprising. And hopefully by the time you get to the end of the season, you will understand why all of those things have never been discussed.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, Michael Adalo from Australia. Just a question for Alex and Heather and perhaps Anson. Can you talk a bit about the casting of Rebecca Romaine in the sense that obviously you have to find an actress whose service as a character that sits in your narrative, but within the Star Trek canon you have a character who maybe not, is not the biggest character in the history of Star Trek, but is significant because she was originated by Majel Barrett. How did you kind of find a balance of those rhythms in the sense of doing what you needed to do, but honouring what Majel had done? And I guess for Anson, your thoughts on having the original number one in the frame with you?
Well, I think what Majel conveyed in TOS is a real sense of authority and confidence, and obviously a connection to Pike that could have suggested many different things, you know, and we're definitely digging into that. I think it was funny seeing Rebecca, first of all, seeing the actors show up on set in the TOS outfits was really incredible. Like, it was just an amazing thing because the color scheme is obviously so different from Discovery. So seeing the actors in that place, you get this amazing feeling of reinterpreting and yet honoring at the same time. And when you see I mean, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a real similarity between Anson and Jeffrey in the facial area. And, you know, they're both incredibly handsome guys. And the thing that I love about what Anson's bringing and what Rebecca's bringing is there's, I think, a depth that couldn't be explored in those characters, obviously given how little screen time they had back then. But I'm really excited about it, and it's pretty cool because obviously there's almost a fanboy quality that comes with Rebecca just based on X-Men. That's exciting to bear here a little bit.
Hi, over here at your left. I have a question. Certainly in the first season, there was a theme of redemption, certainly with Burnham, and then so in the second season, what sort of theme are we expecting?
I mean, I think we've talked a lot about how this season is going to be exploring, family dynamics, but as it relates to all of us, as it relates to who we are as a family, how we are as a family, now that we can deal with the aftermath of the war, now that we have the time and the space to do that because we're in a place of security. A lot of that stuff is going to be unearthed, what was left, right? Or maybe I should say it's already been unearthed, so now we have to sift through it. So that's really exciting. And just if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'm going to throw back to that question about the 12-year-old. And I'm going to say that there's so much love here everywhere. And back to the introductions, when you meet Doug Jones, you meet love. Let me just say that. But if I had to speak to my 12-year-old self, I would say that one day you will tell a story that has already changed people's lives and that will continue to change people's lives through love. And love in all its facets, love in acceptance, love in representation, love in unity. That's really what we're doing here and what we're exploring in this story of universality. It's really a story of love, and I would say that that's what you have to look forward to. So get ready and try to bring it in your life now. But yes, season 2 is going to be really exciting because there's a lot that we all have to deal with each other and with ourselves. And here we go. I said earlier, I was like, oh, my heart is a mess. And now I have time to go through it, so let's go.
I wanted to ask Doug Jones and Mary Chieffo, will we learn more about your background, Saru, as your people? And then Laurel being in charge of everybody.
Everybody. Well, yes, I do now have some power over the empire. I'm the chancellor, trying to do my best, uphold Takuma's vision. But it's going to be, it's fraught with strife because patriarchies are patriarchies, and oftentimes they do things when they're angry at women. And but beyond that, I just think that there's, you get the kind of grandiose side of things, the ruler, but then you also get the heart and humanity, as Suniko was alluding to, the love and the vulnerability. So you get a little bit of both.
As far as Kelpians go, I'm the only one you've ever seen in this universe. Of course, the mirror universe, there were dinner. But and brunch, depending on your taste. I think the key word is evolution this year. Maybe for all of us sitting up here on the stage, the evolution continues, and the peeling back of the onion does continue. We do visit my home planet. We're going to find out. We're going to meet some of my family. We're going to find out where Saru comes from, how he became what he is, why the fear, who's the predator. All those things are going to come into play that I'm very excited to tell you about, but I can't go all the way there right now.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to click to the right to check out another awesome Comic-Con video, and don't forget to subscribe.